Hey everybody, just another session in the dosage calculation series. Today we're going to talk about oral and parenteral medications, and this is going to be broken up in two parts, and this will be the first part. Objectives for both parts in this session are going to be calculating problems for oral medications in solid and liquid form. We're going to calculate some doses based on body weight and calculate doses for parenteral medications in liquid form. All right, so before we begin doing some math, just want to reiterate, you want to start with what you're solving for. So we really need to take a look at a few things in the question as we read it. So what we're solving for is usually going to be at the end of the question. And for this case, it's how many capsules are going to be administering. You also need to look at other significant and relevant information. So for example, we need to know what the order is, and that is 40 milligrams of the Cymbalta. And then you need to know how it's stocked, and that's stocked in 20 milligram capsules. So bringing this question forward, let's just take a look again at what we need. We're going to solve for capsules. It's supplied in 20 milligrams. The order is for 40, and we need to make sure we round to a whole number. So now we can set up our problem, and we are solving for capsules per day. And we know that we have to have capsules on the top, and we know the medication is supplied in 20 milligrams. So let's start there. And then let's add our other information that we need. So we know in order to cancel milligrams needs to be on top. And that's 40 milligrams a day. Then you can cancel what you don't need, and then what we're left with. So all we have to do is divide. We have 40 divided by 20, and that is going to leave us with 2 capsules per day, already rounded. All right, so in this problem, let's look at what we need to solve. First and foremost, we know that we're solving for tablets, okay, per dose. Now this is going to get important. We know the medication is supplied in 80 milligram tablets, and then we know that the order is for 120 milligrams orally 2 times a day. So I want to pay attention to that, because although that is very, very important, we're going to give this medication twice a day. Remember, the question is asking solving per dose. So let's go ahead and set up our problem. We're solving for tablet per dose. We know that we have 120 milligrams. That's going to be per dose. And we know it's supplied in 80 milligram tablets. We know tablet has to go on top, so 80 has to go on the bottom. Left with tablet per dose because that's exactly what we need. Whoop, not equal sign, that's a 0. Sorry about that, folks. And what we're going to be left with once we do the math on that is going to be 1.5, 1.5 tablets per dose. You can also write it in 1 and 1/2. That would be acceptable. All right, so again, let's kind of take a look at what we need. Now this is really interesting question. I brought this forward because I notice a lot of students have challenges with this type of question. Now let's go back to what we've always been doing. It's how many tablets can we administer per dose, so that's important. And we know we're given Vicodin. Okay, the order reads 10 milligrams, 600 every 8 hours for pain. And then we have an order, or not an order, the supply, it comes in 5 milligram, 300 tablets. So here's what that means, okay? This medication, this tablet, has 2 medications in one. I call it a combo med. It has hydrocodone and acetaminophen. So when you're looking at what does this mean for me, when I'm looking at all these numbers, is that there is in this order or in the pill, either one, hydrocodone is 10 milligrams and acetaminophen is 600. So how do you solve this style of problem? You first ask yourself, am I going to work on the left side of the line or the right side of the line? So you just choose which path you want to go, left or right, and just stay there. So let's work one out, and I'll work it both ways so you can see that the answer comes to the same. All right, so we are solving for tablet per dose. Now, if we're working on the left-hand side, we know that we have tablets, and those are ordered or supplied in 5 milligrams. Now we're only looking at the left side, but the order is 10 milligrams per dose. And then we just have to divide 10 by 5. That's going to leave us 2 tabs, right? So here's how it goes when you use the other side. In a tablet, okay, there's 300 milligrams of Tylenol, but the order is showing you 600 per dose. That leaves us 600 divided by 300. Also, final answer, 2 tabs. So again, when you have a medication that has 2 medication in one pill, when you're solving and trying to figure out what you're going to give, stay on the left or stay on the right all the way through the problem. So this is the exact same question almost from the previous screen. The last screen was to show you how you can work out the problem per dose. The difference with this particular question now is the STEM is asking for how many tablets that can be administered in a 24-hour period. So here's where a lot more information is going to become significant and relevant. We know that we're solving for tablets, but this time it's in a 24-hour period, so a day. We know the supply of the medication. We also have the order. Now that didn't change, but here's what becomes really important. We need to look at the rest of it. Every 8 hours for pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to work out our problem now that we're not solving for dose now. We're solving for how many pills can the nurse give in a 24-hour period or in one day. So now what we will end up with, instead of tab per dose like we did before, we're doing tabs per day. Okay, so I'm going to stay on the left side of the problem. I like the left side because there's less zeros in there, and zeros tend to have me make errors in the calculator, and I don't like errors. So I know that I have an order, and again, you can start with the order, you can start with the supply, whatever method you want to do. I'm going to start with the order, and I know the order of the hydrocodone is 10 milligrams, okay? But that is for dose. We don't want dose just yet, okay? I know that the supply is in a tablet, there's 5 milligrams based on how it's stocked. Now, I've got my tabs, but I need to do something about that day. So when you're looking at every 8 hours, if you were to count that out in a 24-hour time period, that means you could administer this medication 3 times. So we can give 3 doses, and this would be in a day or 24 hours. So now what we want to do is we want to clean it up a little bit. We don't need milligrams, okay, and we don't need dose, but we are left with tab per day. So now all you have to do is do the math. Okay, 10 milligrams times 3 divided by 5 equals 30 divided by 5, and you are left with 6. So as the nurse, this is your order. Every time you go to give this medication, you are going to give 2 tablets, okay? But if you were asked how many can I give in an entire day, that would be a total of 6 tablets. All right, so for this medication, we're going to give Daypro 1.8 gram orally daily. It's supplied in 600 milligram caplets. We're solving for caplets. We want a whole number. Here's our order, and this is how it's stocked. I already know, and I hope you're catching it already, that this problem is going to require us to do some conversion. So let's set up our problem. We are going to give caplet per day. Okay, so what I have is I know that I have 1.8 gram, okay, and that's a day. I know, and I'm already going to do my conversion now. I just want to get that out of the way because I like to keep things kind of connected together. In 1 gram, there is 1,000 milligrams. And I also know that it comes in 600 milligrams, and we got to put 600 on the bottom because we need to cancel the milligrams, and that is going to be per caplet. So now we just need to do a little cleanup. I don't need grams. I don't need milligrams, but I need the caplet and I need the day. So now I know my problem is set up correctly, and now we will just do some math. And once you do the math for that, you are left with 1,800 over 600. Again, I don't like all those zeros, so you can actually do a little canceling here to make it easier to divide. And I always like work easy, not hard. 18 divided by 6 is going to leave us 3 caplets per day. All right, so let's take a look at another problem. I brought this one in because your order is just a little different. I want to reinforce how orders are going to come for you so you can get familiar. The prescriber orders azithromycin 500 milligrams PO stat, and that means right now. And it's going to be a one-time dose immediately, and then you might see if the provider wanted to continue that order, they'd rewrite it. The medication is supplied in 100 milligrams per 5 milliliters, so we need to know what's important here. Well, I know that I need to do milliliters because that's what we're asking for, and we know the supply, and we have the order, and we want to round to a whole number. So we're going to do milliliters per dose. Okay. And we have in the order 500 milligrams, and that's going to be the dose. And we know it's supplied in 10 milligrams per 5 ml. So 10 milligrams has to go on the bottom and 5 milliliters on top so that we can have our setup correctly. And if you divide 500 by 10, okay, you are, ooh, hang on, I missed a number here. Let's erase that. There we go. All right, so let's go back here. We actually have 500 and we have to multiply by that 5 milliliters. Don't forget that, like I almost did, divided by 10. That's going to leave us with 2,500 divided by 10, and ultimately with a final answer of 25 milliliters. All right, so a little bit similar problem, but again, we need to pay attention to what's given to us in the problem. We know that we're solving for milliliters, okay? We know that the order is 140 milligrams and the supply is 100 milligrams per milliliter, but we also know that we need to round to the 10th place. And I always want you to start thinking about that when you're doing problems so that you don't have a missed answer due to rounding. So let's take a look at what we need. We're doing milliliters per dose. And what we have in the order is 140 milligrams. And that is going to be dose. We're solving for dose, not for what we're going to do the whole day, okay? And then we have 1 milliliter in 100 milligrams, and that's how it's supplied. We know our setup is correct because that's what we're left with. So now we have 140 divided by 100. That is going to give us 1.4. Now this is a nice, beautiful problem because when we look at rounding, if we're rounding to the 10th, it works out just perfect for us. So there is our final answer, 1.4 milliliters per dose. All right, so this concludes part 1. Part 2 will be in a separate video presentation.